You are about to listen to my conversation with Luke Wenger of Pontiac, Illinois, who is a veteran of the conflict in Afghanistan. This conversation will provide you with an inside look at military life immediately following 9/11, some of the missions that took place in the decade following, what September 11th was like from a college kid's perspective, and much, much more. Before we begin, if you are a patriot and you appreciate this conversation, please click that share button beneath this video on Facebook. And if you enjoy hearing conversations like these, please subscribe to The Paul Garcia Show on YouTube, like my page on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to directly contribute to the show's production, which I greatly appreciate, while also gaining early access to every single episode, as well as access to some bonus content, I would love for you to become a patron on patreon.com/Paul Garcia, right here. You can also make one-time donations on Venmo to The Paul Garcia Show. I'd like to take this chance to thank my current beloved patrons, John the Hebrew Hammer Traub, my good friend Josh Hartke, Greg Sullins, the Metcalfs, Jared Walter, Zach B., Henry Steffen, Shaquille Oatmeal, Alyssa Ricketts, Miranda Noyes, Parker Shilson, Ben Hotcakes Traub, and today's sponsors are Kelly Gerber, a trusted real estate agent in Central Illinois, Marchelloni's Pizza in Fairbury, Forrest Edge Tree Service in Livingston County, Fairbury Furniture in Fairbury, and Tri-County Carpet and Flooring, also in Fairbury. Be sure to tell these places that you heard about them on The Paul Garcia Show. Now, without any further ado, here is my conversation with Luke Wenger. Hello and welcome to The Paul Garcia Show, a show about the remarkable people of Central Illinois. I'm your host, Paul Garcia, and I invite you to join me as I speak with these individuals about their stories, the lessons they've learned, and the knowledge they've gained along the way. Tune in every Sunday to witness the power of bringing each new individual's unique journey into the spotlight.
I remember, I was going to school in Parkland, and a buddy of mine said, class is canceled today. And we were like, what? We didn't watch the news, 19 years old. And we learned about the attacks. We watched everything on TV. And it was like after that, I tried to go back to class again. And I kind of kept thinking in my head, like, I wasn't a big college kid in the first place. It was just something that I thought you were supposed to do after high school, And so it was always in the back of my head, and I just needed that extra little push to actually go down to the recruiter's office and talk about it. And I didn't have any family members at the time that were in the military. I didn't really have any buddies that were in the military. I didn't know anything about it. And finally, it was my mom, of all people. Most people's mothers are like,
they're the last people that wanted to go.
And my mom's like, maybe it was obvious that I did not like where I was in school. I didn't like college. And so she said, maybe you should join the military. Maybe you should go talk to a recruiter. And so I did. And that kind of started the whole process. And it was fast, like very fast. I went to the recruiting station, and the recruiter was an infantry guy, and he's like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? And I said, well, I was going to school for criminal justice, so how about, military police? And he was like, oh boy, how many times have you been arrested? And I said, none, and he said, well, half the guys that want to be MPs, they're criminals for some reason. They want to learn the other side of the...
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Maybe that was just, he was an infantry guy. I don't know how much he knew about it. But so we took the ASVAB. I scored high enough to be military police. And it was like a month and a half later, I was leaving for basic training. And 17 weeks of basic training in AIT at Fort Leonard Wood and in Missouri, and it was different than I would think what a normal basic training would be like, because the drill sergeants kept telling us all through the training that you're going to go to Iraq.
Wow.
So this is no time to joke around. You've got to learn this. And, a lot of us, I was 20 and I was thinking, we kind of eye roll, whatever, we'll see. Like, maybe we go, maybe we don't. And they were like, as military police, you will go. And I love the MPs for that reason. You've got the law enforcement side where you're basically the cops on a military base. And then you've got the field side where you're in a Humvee with 50 cals and, you get almost like you see both sides of it. You have a garrison MP and you have the field MPs. So you're almost like a mechanized infantry unit when you deploy. We didn't do any kind of law enforcement stuff overseas whatsoever.
Oh, really? Wow.
No. Oh, no.
So as a military police officer, your first experience in, traveling to another country, you weren't really doing military police officer things?
We were, but just not the law enforcement side of military police. The field side, we would patrol cities. We would basically look for bad guys at the beginning. There were people selling grenades. There were people stealing parts to make IEDs. We would track down these people, try to find them. But for the most part, it was just we were patrolling. So
this really quick, Iraq, just so we get the geography of this area, and I don't think a lot of people really understand it that well. Iraq, is that kind of is that really close to Iran, Pakistan, and Afghanistan? Are they all in the same area?
They're relatively in the same area. Iraq and Kuwait are together. And then you've got Iran. And on the other side of Iran is Pakistan and Afghanistan. And you've got all the different stands, the Tajikistan, Turkmenistan.
I've never heard of those two, but
there's a lot.
Just goes to show how people don't really know about that area.
But I mean, I had to look at a map before I went because I didn't know where Iraq was, Right. No, nobody really did.
You have no reason to know where it's at, really.
Yeah.
Really quick, pull the mic a little closer.
Sorry.
No, you're perfectly fine. Okay, so before I want to go back to talking about Iraq and what that area was like, what the environment was like. But first, I want to jump back to 2001, September 11th, actually. So you were in school when that happened, and shortly after that is when you went to the military. Is that correct?
Yes.
So take me to that day, because I'm fascinated to hear what that day was like for someone your age, because you were 19, and when you're a 19-year-old, you're hyper aware of everything, where you are socially, how you're doing with girls, school, everything. And you can remember that area of your life, that time of your life, very, very well. So what do you remember about that day? Like, start from the beginning. If you can even remember waking up, maybe you woke up after the first
I hadn't gone to class yet. I was in our apartment. We had a townhouse that I shared with 3 other guys. And a buddy that was a friend of ours that lived in a different apartment came over and he said, "Wake up, you guys, wake up." And there's a couple guys still sleeping upstairs. And I was downstairs and he's like, we're being bombed. And we were like, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
And we turned on the TV and we watched it all. And at that point, just one of the planes had hit, and we were thinking, like, still, it was a random plane, it was an accident, and after the second one was, when they canceled class, and I think everybody that was in the school probably got pulled out or went home, and we went to like an Arby's, and I remember just sitting there, and we were talking about it, and I just couldn't believe. They said this was a terrorist attack, and I just couldn't believe it. Like how could this happen? What? We're the United States, and being a 19-year-old, you feel invincible, and you feel like your country is invincible, and it just it almost makes you mad. Like, how could they do this to us? Like, we're the United States, we're the big boys on the block. Like, you don't do this to us, and so. Right away, that anger kind of goes into like, we need to do something about it. And of course they started sending troops right away. And that's when over time, when I just couldn't take college like seriously almost anymore. Like I need to be there.
It felt much less important.
This is not, I'm sitting in literature class learning about, Mark Twain. Like, no, I need to be there. Like this is right. Like you said, this is not important. So it's.
Were your buddies on the same page as you, or were they like, yeah, it's important, but I don't know if I want to go into it?
Yeah, most of them were kind of in that, like, I'm going to graduate, man. Like, I don't know about you, like, right. I don't mind college, and I guess, everybody, it's, nothing against people that weren't in the military, but just, I chose that, and, some people just they don't have the mindset for it. They just don't want to do it, and so, I was happy with my decision right off the bat. That's the other scary thing is when you do decide to go, you sign that paperwork before you even show up in basic training. So I had to sign up for 5 years. I thought military police was 4 years. I thought everything was 4 years. I just thought the military was 4 years. And so I'm signing the paperwork. And I'm like, what's this 2007 stuff? And the guy's like, oh, it's 5 years if you want to be an AP. Well, I had already been at the in processing and gotten the whole physical, poked and prodded, everything. And now I'm just now finding out that it's another year. But, at that point, it's like, whatever, sign it. And, and you hope that you like it because you just signed 5 years of your life away.
Yeah.
Either way, there's ways to get out, but a lot of them aren't very honorable. So
right.
I knew from the get-go in basic training that if you were a sports guy and you've been yelled at and you've gone to hard practices, basic training was a walk in the park, for us.
Mm-hmm. And you as an athlete, you played football, so you get the camaraderie, you get the teammatesmanship, you get the importance of acting as a team, but you were also a wrestler, so you understand that it's, you're responsible for your own self.
Right.
You are very disciplined and you take accountability for what you do and how you do it and everything. Yep. So you were probably like the perfect fit for them. And you're like a stockier, muscular guy too, so they're probably like, this guy's gonna be all right.
I wasn't very stocky back then. I was only about 145 pounds. I think I got out of basic training maybe at 150 pounds. I was kind of in the middle there, like all the husky guys, they were all skinny by the end of it, and all the skinny guys had put on some muscle, and I was just like, well, I think I changed 5 pounds, that was it. But
so really quick, you guys all woke up, you're watching TV after the first plane hit. Like the gravity of that day and of the footage of 9/11 is still haunting to this day. Before you came on yesterday I was watching, and we should mention, we're filming this on September 11th. This is going to air tomorrow. And so the footage of those planes hitting and the people's reaction on the street, the news coverage of it, it's haunting. It's unbelievable. I was too young to really remember it. I was probably, I guess I'd be 4. I was too young to really remember it. But I can't imagine if something like that happened today. Like, did you see the second plane hit live?
Yes.
We are brought to you by Kelly Gerber, a trusted real estate agent in Central Illinois. Do you need a trusted real estate professional to assist you in navigating through the buying or selling process? If you do, remember one name, Kelly Gerber. Kelly is a phenomenal real estate agent for Keeley Real Estate in Fairbury, Illinois. If you're selling, she has premier marketing strategies implemented to assure that your home is circulated to buyers throughout Illinois. If you're buying, she has professional relationships with lenders, title companies, inspectors, and attorneys to alleviate the stress that comes with buying a home. Whether you're buying or selling, Kelly works hard to ensure that the real estate process is enjoyable and stress-free. It's a seller's market, so the time to call is now. Call Kelly up at 217-390-8205 or send her an email at kelly@keeleyrealestate.com to begin your real estate journey today. Member of Mid-Illinois Realtors Association, Illinois Board of Realtors, and the National Association of Realtors. You're watching as this plane came in.
After the first plane, it took us a while to get it on the TV, but then we just sat there and watched it until after the second plane hit. I don't know how long we watched it. We watched it for a few hours, and I just I guess it probably took me a few days for it, all the follow-up stuff to come out, over the next few days. Because right at the beginning, people didn't even realize everything that was going on. It was, there was another plane being hijacked. The Pentagon was getting hit, and it was too much to process. And I think it took me at least a week to really like let it soak in of like what actually happened, especially, being a kid, I guess, it was a little bit harder to understand all that kind of stuff. I think I would probably handle it a lot different at my age now, 20 years later. But back then, I remember being so confused.
Right. Why was it confusing? Like, what part of it was hard to understand? Was it that there truly is evil in the world? Is it that people can, in fact, attack the United States successfully? Or what was it?
A lot of it was how could this be happening? I couldn't believe that this could happen to us. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows about Pearl Harbor, and that was kind of the last time something on this scale happened. And at least I thought in my mind, like we're way ahead of, nothing like that could ever happen to the United States ever again. Like we've got, the CIA, we've got everybody, our borders are sealed, nobody can get in here. Nobody can, with all the security measures that were in place. And, looking back on it now, it obviously wasn't nearly as secure as what we thought it was.
Right. And we're going against an unorthodox enemy.
Yeah.
We're used to like Japan in Pearl Harbor coming mm-hmm. with their planes from long distance away and doing it the old fashioned way. This was not an inside job, but these people who were with Al-Qaeda, I'm not actually sure how to pronounce it. They literally came and went through like pilot training and like, it was really elaborate. Mm-hmm. It was really sneaky. It was pretty well thought out. And actually, fun fact, someone from Prairie Central, whose sister, I believe, was training to become a pilot at the time, trained with some of those guys that ended up. Yeah. So, and she says she remembers those guys, because they were all men, just being so focused on just being able to fly the plane. Like they weren't actually that focused on landing.
Right. Yeah.
Which is very freaky.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so it was just crazy to think that the United States is not indestructible.
Right. Yeah. Man. That and that was scary to think that.
So you go to, shortly after that, you enroll in the military mm-hmm. to be a military police officer. How soon after that, and how quick was your training before you went off to Iraq first?
So my first day of basic training was October 9th, 2002. And I graduated basic training February 28th of 2003. And we were in Iraq on April 5th, 2003.
Oh, wow.
So I was in Iraq 6 months after I joined the military. And that is kind of a...
That is quicker than I thought. You said 2 different years, and I was like, oh, wait, those 2 different years are only a few months apart. Oh, my gosh.
So there was 4 of us that went to Fort Riley, Kansas to the 977th MP Company. And when we got there, they were in processing us, and they knew that they were going to be in Iraq on April 5th. And so they were rushing us. They were taking us out. There's things that you have to get qualified on. They were taking us out to the ranges, getting us all qualified on all the different types of crew serve machine guns that we were going to have, the M240, the 249, the Mark 19. These are all going to be, weapons that we were going to use in country. So we had to quick go out there. Sure, we shot them in basic training, mm-hmm. but it was exactly that. It was very basic. And so they had to take us out. We had to get qualified on that. We had to get our in-processing paperwork done. We were being rushed everywhere. Just the 4 of us, because they wanted to make sure that we deployed with the rest of the company. And I remember calling Mom and Dad. I had no clue before that I was going to actually go to Iraq. And I called my parents super excited that we're going, right off the bat. I don't even have to wait around very long, like 2 weeks and we're taking off, we're out of here. And my parents were like, oh boy,
Were they nervous?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. They didn't. They're very good at hiding their emotions to me, because if they were scared, then that would make me scared. So I was 20. I was like invincible. Nothing was going to happen to me. I was just excited to go somewhere new. So.
Wow.
We all, and I didn't even know anybody in the unit really then.
What was the morale like for those guys that you went to Iraq with? And really so I know that you were taking training seriously before you went to Iraq. And so I know that part about the culture and the vibe and the morale of those guys. But when you actually went to Iraq, what was your troop like? What were they thinking? Was everyone like, we're going to get the bad guys? And maybe I should also ask, what was the mission in going to Iraq?
So the mission was, we were attached to the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, and they were charging into Baghdad at the time. That was what was all over the news. The Marines were going to Baghdad. They were charging to Baghdad. And right when we showed up, we had to stage up in Kuwait. Kuwait was liberated from Desert Storm, so it was a safe place, I guess you could say. And we didn't know when we were going to go into Iraq for sure. All we could do was train every day on what we might be doing. We didn't know for sure what our mission was going to be.
Oh, I see.
All we knew is we were going to be with the 1st Marines.
Is that kind of how the military works a lot of the time? They send you places before you, as an individual, know exactly what you're there for?
Oh, yeah. They don't, and even if they knew the mission, they're not going to tell us till we get in the country, because they don't want a 19-year-old blabbing to all of his buddies back home about where he's going to be and what he's going to be doing. And I mean, because we would have.
Oh, absolutely, you would have. If you knew you were going to go into battle for some like great cause or something, you'd tell your friends. And man.
So I remember practicing over and over again, putting the mop suit on, the chemical suit, and the gas mask for in case there was a chemical attack. And we would also practice mount training, the military operations on urban terrain, where basically door kicking and clearing rooms.
Oh.
And we all knew that's one of the most dangerous things you can do.
Oh my gosh.
And they kept telling us, remember your training, remember your training. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I don't have any training. 6 months ago, I was a civilian.
We are brought to you by Tri-County Carpet and Flooring, Sales and Installation in Fairbury, Illinois. Roll the clip. Tri-County Carpet and Flooring in Fairbury is the premier flooring store throughout Livingston, McLean, and Ford counties. From choosing the perfect flooring to measuring and installation, Tri-County ensures top quality products and services. Their trained professionals boast precise measurements, straight cuts, and perfect fits, while their showroom houses a multitude of gorgeous, top-quality, name-brand carpet and flooring options in the latest styles and colors that are durable and long-lasting. With free estimates, design consultation, and contractor and multi-room discounts, Tri-County in Fairbury is your one-stop shop for all of your home and business flooring needs. Pay them a visit at 19 Jan Lane in Fairbury, Illinois, right off of Route 24, and give them a call at 815-692-3666.
Tri-County Carpet, your flooring paradise.
We did this for, a few weeks in basic training. I'm thinking I don't know how to do this.
Of course.
And that was when the first shred of being scared kind of came into my head.
When you're telling this whole story, dude, I have to imagine that this was a whirlwind for about 2 years at least. So you were at Parkland. All of a sudden you watch these terrorist bombings or these terrorist attacks on TV. Everything changes. You go to the military. They train you with a level of seriousness that was probably not felt by people who trained prior to you. And then all of a sudden you're in Iraq, and now you're training in this way that you never trained before, and you're like, this is just nuts. You never had time to adjust, it doesn't seem like.
Right. But at that age, you're very... I guess, resilient to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're durable, you're malleable.
I could never do that now. Like, I would be thinking of all the things that could happen and everything that could. And to me back then, I'm like, as long as I followed orders, I'm going to be fine. You know, like all these sergeants and lieutenants and officers ahead of me, like they all know what they're doing. I'm going to be fine.
I think when it comes to military personnel now, there's a lot of trust in your military leaders. But I think before 9/11, since 9/11, I don't know if it's necessarily because of 9/11 or anything. But if you look at the general public's opinions then and polling data then versus now, people really don't trust the government and government agencies hardly near. It's not even comparable. Like they trust them way less now than they did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But do you think that's the case with military personnel, or is there still that same level of trust? Because you were saying you trusted the decisions made by your military superiors that if you did what they said, you were going to be okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the case now, or is there?
I think that I don't know how the military, the active duty now feels about the government, but as far as the command, your chain of command, you have to trust them because if you don't, it's not a very good team unit. You know, if you don't trust your commander or you don't trust your team leader, then you're going to be hesitant to do what he says when he tells you what to do. And in a combat situation, you might only have, you know, a fraction of a second or a few seconds to do what he says or to follow the orders. And if you're back there going, you know, he tells you, get out of the truck, you know, get out of the truck. And you're thinking, well, I don't know. The truck's armored. I might just stay in here. You know, it's fine. And now, you know, you've got a bad situation on your hands if people aren't following the chain of command. The chain of command was put there for a reason. So
Before September 11th, 2001, did you ever talk about or think about terrorists, specifically Islamic extremist terrorists?
No.
Was it even in the news much?
It was something that I saw on like Chuck Norris movies, you know, like, you know, the Clint Eastwood Marine movie. I can't think of the name of it. But it was like a Hollywood thing to us, you know, like, cause we didn't know anybody that had dealt with it directly. And it had been years, you know, it had been since Desert Storm since like something happened and, you know, Saddam Hussein and all that stuff. And that was over, you know, in a few weeks. And so it was almost like, yeah, we showed them, you know, that wasn't even scary, you know, and that was when I was a kid. So that's when I started hearing Kuwait, Iraq, I remembered of, oh yeah, that was from, you know, Kuwait was Desert Storm. That was, and we before we went into Iraq, we stayed at some old Desert Storm camps that were still there. And so, you know, that was cool to me. Like, here I am, you know, it's, but as far as, terrorists, no, you never thought about them at all. Like it's, you know, like I said, it was one of those things like they wouldn't mess with us. Like that's one of those, they fight amongst themselves over there. You know, it's Kuwait and Iraq, you know, they're fighting again and it's in the back of your head all the time. Like you don't even think about it. It doesn't affect your day-to-day life whatsoever.
What a lot of people say about 9/11, probably the only good thing that came out of that was this patriotism in the American people. They kind of came together in some way, which was, we're going to get these people back. We're going to get revenge. We're going to fight. It's like, it was kind of a cool thing. I would imagine it sounds like it was cool. It was some cool thing that came out of a horrible event. But help me to understand what exactly the mission was and what our retaliation efforts were going to look like or supposed to look like. Because if I understand it correctly, just correct me if I'm wrong. So we had the attacks on September 11th. George Bush, who was the president at the time, kind of said, we're going to get whoever did this and we're basically going to take them out. We're going to make them wish they never did anything like this to the United States. It was a great thing. Everyone was pumped up about it. And we quickly found out that Al-Qaeda was kind of behind this, and we found out Osama bin Laden, who was a descendant of a family that was really rich from Saudi Arabia, was kind of at the head of that organization. So if we wanted to hit one person, it was probably going to be him, and we quickly learned about how they were over in the Middle East somewhere probably in, where was it? I'm not exactly sure where it was, but then Al-Qaeda went got protected by the Taliban, who were in Afghanistan. Is that right? And I don't know how quickly these things happened, but we wanted the Taliban, who is ironically and oddly now in power once again, as of less than a month ago in Afghanistan. We wanted them to turn over Al-Qaeda, and they wouldn't. Is that why we went over there? To get them? Or was it multifaceted? Like, what? Why did we go over there?
To Afghanistan or
Iraq, maybe.
Iraq? Well, there was the weapons of mass destruction.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Thing. And Saddam was still in power in Iraq. And so during Desert Storm, they drove him into Iraq from Kuwait. And he was kind of like our main focus in Iraq. The Afghanistan guys, they were there they were in Afghanistan at the same time as we were in Iraq, and they were all about Osama over there.
Really?
That's how I understood it at the time. And as far as like our mission, it was going to be, we drive all these terrorists out, we get Saddam out of power, and then we can start building this country back up. And it turned into like a hearts and minds, they always called it, after the initial push, which didn't last very long at all. Sure, after that, there were all the small IED attacks. Like you said, this enemy knew they couldn't take us head on. No way. So they had to be, almost like the old colonials were against the British Army. They had to be sneaky. They had to plant, bombs here. They had to do little sneak attacks, when you weren't expecting it. And that drives you crazy, as a soldier.
We are brought to you by Marchelloni's Pizza in Fairbury, Illinois. Studies show that pizza from Marchelloni's Pizza in Fairbury is the tastiest pizza to those of us with properly functioning brains and taste buds. Don't fight the science. Pizza from Marchelloni's Pizza in Fairbury is spectacular. And not only that, they also offer a daily happy hour. So if you call between 4 and 5 p.m. and order a pizza, you get the second one of equal or lesser value for free. Restrictions apply. You can even call at 4:45 p.m., in between 4 and 5, order your pizzas, pick them up at 8 p.m., and you will still get that happy hour discount. For the most delicious pizzas around, head nowhere else but Marchelloni's Pizza in Fairbury, Illinois. It's perfect for after football games. Call them up and place your order today at 815-692-4602 and pick it up at 405 East Locust Street in Fairbury.
Because, you're not really trained to fight something like that, because
right. Keep going. I'm gonna do something real quick, but keep talking.
How do you if somebody's got an IED on a cell phone detonator, and you're driving down the road, and they were putting it in dead animals, they're putting it in bags of trash. You can't avoid every dead animal, every bag of trash. So what do? You go by it and hope that, your truck armor stands up, which my first tour, we didn't even have armor on the trucks. They were soft skin, you could shoot a rifle round right through the door.
Man. So how long were you in Iraq?
12 months my first time and 15 months my second tour.
Okay. And your primary goal was, you were keeping everything safe, right? You were kind of doing patrols and everything, but you're also, if someone were to attack or anything, you would be like first line of defense. Is that right?
Right. Like you would, we would try to keep, we were in one city it was called Diwania, Iraq, for most of the time we were there. And our mission was, we did patrols around the city and inside the city, because we still knew that there were terrorists and small groups hiding out within that city.
Oh my gosh. Is that not infuriating to you? It's like, why can't,
definitely.
They're hiding among the civilians.
Yeah.
That fires me up, man. I'm like, how could you do that? It's so immoral.
They wave at you during the day, and then they shoot at you at night, and you don't know who it was.
No way. So did you get shot at? Like, did your...
Yeah.
Really? Did that happen a lot or something?
No, it didn't happen a lot. There weren't a lot of firefights, anything. It was mostly the IED, the indirect attacks. But I remember the first time, it was probably 4 months into our first tour, and we were going to a fire. A house was on fire. And my team leader said on the way out there, I was the lowest ranking guy, is the gunner up on top of the Humvee. So I was in the turret up on top of the truck, and he said, hey, it was nighttime. And he said, hey, Wenger, keep an eye out because we might get hit during this. And I said, why? It's a fire. You know, we're just escorting the fire. They had a local fire department. They had to go down to the river and fill up their truck. There's no fire hydrants. And then come back, spray water on the fire, go back down to the river, fill up the truck again. And he said, and we're sitting there, and he said, keep an eye out because they light these fires knowing that we come. So this could be an ambush.
Right?
Yeah. And it wasn't 10 minutes later, from over top of a wall, somebody's just got an AK spraying it at us. And you can hear it hitting the truck. And my first instinct is to duck down. You know, when you hear shots going off and ping, ping, pinging, you want to get down inside the truck, you know, and we didn't have the turret shields back then. So you're just from the chest up, you're exposed on top of this truck. Mm-hmm. And my team leaders hit me on the leg saying, where did it come from? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, well, get back up there and shoot back. And I'm like, all I'm seeing is maybe some muzzle flashes from over here. And so I sprayed a couple bursts in that direction. I don't think I hit anything, and it was over. It was done. And that bothered me for a long time after that. You know, being a 20-year-old kid, I'm thinking they were shooting at me. Like, they wanted to kill me because of the flag on my shoulder, because of this uniform that I'm wearing. Like, they don't know me. I don't know them, you know, and to them, like, they're fighting for their country and I'm the enemy.
I read a book one time by Jordan Peterson. He's a clinical psychologist, and he explained how the majority of veterans who have PTSD, they don't have PTSD from the gruesome things they saw necessarily, but from what they watch themselves do. But also, people can get PTSD from that weird realization that there are people out there who want to genuinely do you harm to the fullest extent. When you realize, hey, they were shooting at me. If they would have killed me, ended my life with any of those bullets, it would have been a good thing in their book. They would be happy, and I wouldn't be here anymore. Was that freaky?
Yeah.
Was that like, oh
I mean,
my gosh.
that's something that, like, I never even thought about before. And the other thing that at least I never thought about, that I know most of us didn't, was you know, on the way there, you're on the plane, you're all pumped, like, we're gonna kick some butt, we're gonna make a name for ourselves. You know, everybody's a terrorist. Everybody in Iraq's a terrorist. Everybody in Afghanistan's a terrorist. And then you land, and you start getting out into the towns and the cities, and you see little kids with backpacks on, going to school. You see men that just want to try to run a laundry business, you know, and the families, and they're living in nothing, you know, nothing. Dirt floors, above ground sewage, you know, the whole place smells. The famous Tigris and Euphrates rivers there are just filled with plastic and pollution, and you see all this, and it's, you know, that kind of stuff is something that you don't think about before you get there. And, you know, I started thinking, like, these little kids, like, they just happen to be born here. You know, like, I happen to be born in Fairbury, Illinois. They happen to be born in Baghdad, Iraq. Like, you know, well, stinks to be you. But, man, you know.
You quickly realize that these are people, too, with hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
And they want to do good for their kids. They're not all evil. But then you also realize the enemy are among them.
Yes. And I'll never forget the guy that cut our hair. We had Iraqis that would kind of be paid by the U.S., at least at the beginning, before we got any big contractors, that would be, you know, our interpreters, that would be that would cut our hair, that would serve us food. And the guy that cut our hair showed up, and he was beat up. He had black eyes, broken nose, and he keeps cutting our hair, and we're like, what happened? Well, they found out that he was cutting our hair, and so we got beat up because he was helping the U.S.
Who is they? Who beat him up? Was it the Taliban that was you were fighting against? I do not know.
It could have been the Taliban. It could have been a local kid that didn't like the U.S. For any reason. They always used to say to us, you kill one terrorist, you produce like 5 more. Because now his son...
I've never heard that. That's frightening.
If you kill this guy and he's got a 6-year-old son, he's going to grow up and not like you. You killed dad, and his brothers, they're not going to like you. And if they weren't part of the resistance before, they are now.
Wow.
And so it really turned into hearts and minds. And
what does that mean exactly?
It was, you have to win their hearts and minds. We want them to love us. And the kids all loved us. It was like a parade at the beginning when we were going through the towns. That running alongside, they gave us candy to throw out to them. Eventually, they gave us soccer balls. And they thought we were the greatest, and then it was the older community that was, looking at us with that, what are your intentions here?
Oh, of course.
So we were trying to get everybody on our side, because if we were constantly fighting that, then we were going to have a very hard time making progress in that country.
Right. Okay, so you did 2 tours in Iraq, and that lasted you up until 2007 when your enrollment officially ended. Is that right?
Yes. The second tour I volunteered for, and it was protective services for 4-star General George Casey Jr. So there was about 26 of us you're basically a bodyguard for a general and a staff, and he was the multinational forces Iraq commander. That was stationed inside the Green Zone, right across the river from Baghdad. So, that was a lot different tour. Most people don't do something like that. Mm-hmm. And so when I redeployed from that, when I came back to Fort Riley, the sergeant major said there was only 4 of us that went from Fort Riley. He said they took guys from all over wherever this general was. Used to be stationed, they took soldiers from those bases to make up the 27 that was on his security detail.
Okay.
So when we came back from that, the sergeant major said, you guys didn't have to volunteer. You were only back from your first tour for, 4 months or so. Any job in the military police world, I got connections. He's like, I'll make it happen. He goes, if you want to change a duty station, I'll make that happen. So we're like, holy cow, this is a sweet gig. So the MP's got a lot of different jobs you can do as an MP. So the first thing I said is canine. I want a dog. And he goes, how long do you have how long do you have left in the military? And I said 3 years. And he goes, the school's almost a year for that. And he said, those dogs cost so much money. He goes, re-enlist and I'll make sure that you're canine. And I said, I'm not ready to re-enlist yet. So I went to be a game warden. So I was a military police game warden for my last 3 years of active duty, which was awesome. Drive a pickup truck and check fishing licenses. And
I was going to say, I was like game as in hunting.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyways, you end up going back though to Afghanistan, and I really want to talk plenty about that. You went to Afghanistan in 2009.
Yep.
We are brought to you by Fairbury Furniture. Fairbury Furniture is the area's absolute favorite furniture store. Their selection is gargantuan, their staff is helpful and friendly, and they have all of your favorite brands of mattresses, tables, chairs, recliners, couches, and basically all furniture items. So make your home comfy, stylish, and delightful when you shop at Fairbury's own Fairbury Furniture. What did you do that for? How did you get roped up in that?
So, everybody that joins the military, it's an 8-year obligation. A lot of people don't realize that. If you join
Myself included,
for the National Guard, if you join for 4 years of active duty, they even had 2-year enlistments for a while when I was in. They still got you for 8 years. So when I got out after 5 years, they had me for 3 more years. So they had me until 2010. And
what that means is you can basically go live your normal life and you're always on reserve. Is that what it's called?
It's the Individual Ready Reserve, the IRR.
Okay.
You don't have to show up to any formations. You can grow a beard. You don't have to cut your hair, but you're one set of orders away, one phone call away from coming back. Well, they tell you when you sign up, oh, that'll never happen, unless World War III, like we haven't recalled people in years. Well, in 2009, I got a packet in the mail, my parents did, that said I had 2 months to report to Fort Stewart, Georgia, in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, which is Afghanistan. So didn't know what to expect at all. I couldn't believe it. All my buddies are like, man, you did your time. You know what? Now you got to go to Afghanistan? Well, Obama did a 30,000 troop surge in 2009, and I guess there weren't enough active duty MPs to cover it, and so they had to recall guys. So
what was that surge for? 2009 is a time that I can kind of remember.
I have no idea, honestly.
It just goes to show, like, you get sent to a place before you know exactly what's going on.
We got the orders, and it just said, all it said was it wasn't supposed to exceed 1 year boots on the ground, so not supposed to exceed 1 year in country. Mm-hmm. So went to Fort Stewart, Georgia, and people were showing up in uniforms. People were showing up in old uniforms. There were truck drivers. There was refuelers, all different types of jobs in the military. It was kind of a ragtag looking group. We were all together. Half of them were overweight, males, females, all together. Huh. And they put us in a formation. Half of them were going to Iraq. Half of us were going to Afghanistan. And right off the bat, they did physicals and PT tests. And that cut the group in about half. If somebody was just absolutely overweight, couldn't physically do the training anymore, if they had family, if they were like the sole breadwinner for their family, and I think that was like a family hardship type thing. I think they got out of it for that. Obviously pregnant females. Mm-hmm. So it quickly turned into a group of 11 of us military police that were all the same rank. We were all Sergeant E5s. And we knew that we were all going to be together in Afghanistan. And so they sent us to Fort Leonard Wood, where we did basic training, just to make sure we still knew how to load a radio, do a radio check, shoot the weapons, everything. Of course, that came back to us pretty naturally. And we got attached to the Georgia National Guard infantry unit. And I'd never been to Georgia before this. I'd never been in the National Guard. And we were going to Afghanistan with the Georgia National Guard.
Wow.
So we went to Camp Atterbury, Indiana, which isn't that far from here, only about 3 hours. And we trained for 3 months with the Georgia guys. And I remember the colonel looked at us and he was like, what am I going to do with 8 military police? This is an infantry unit. Like, what are you guys even doing here? And we're like, send us home. I don't know what we're doing here. And we ended up doing customs and QRF, the Quick Reaction Force. We did patrols around. I was stationed in Kabul.
You were in Kabul?
Yes, Camp Phoenix, which was a pretty big base. It was the biggest base in Kabul.
And that's like prime real estate for, terrorists, right?
Right.
Isn't that where they want to take over? That's the capital of Afghanistan?
Yes. So our mission was, as the Quick Reaction Force, we did patrols every day within 5 kilometers of the base. We did walking patrols, and we had a certain response time. It was like, it was like 10 minutes. We had to be ready and rolling out the gate. If anything happened where somebody needed support, we were on the way. We had 4 trucks, all with 50 cal machine guns up on top. And those stayed mounted 24/7, just because if you ever had to put a 50 cal up on top of a Humvee, it's not exactly easy.
Right. A 50 caliber machine gun, I feel like is an odd thing to picture. I mean, 50 caliber, isn't that what sniper rifles are? Like those 50 cal snipers, aren't those huge bullets?
The Barrett sniper rifles.
Right, yeah. And that's a machine gun now. It's just boom, boom.
It's been it hasn't changed hardly any since like World War II. It's designated the M2 in the Army, and it's I think it's been the M2 forever. I mean, it doesn't have a safety on it. It might have gotten a safety now, but back then it didn't have a safety on it. It's got the butterfly trigger with the big long barrel that goes out the front, and I guess if it's not broke, don't fix it because that weapon has served the military so well for years and years and years that it's still a very effective weapon. The distance, just the overall power of it, and so that's the main one that we carried up on top of the trucks, and then so I didn't know what to expect when we got into Afghanistan. I already had so much time in Iraq that it was just, I guess it was kind of like, whatever, we got the, and most of the guys I was with, they all had at least 1 or 2 tours in Iraq also. But we found out very quickly that Afghanistan was quite a bit different, because you're fighting a different enemy there than we were in Iraq.
Could you explain how that is? How so? How are they different?
They told us before we got in the country that they said these guys in Iraq, it was IED and it was over with. It was explosion and there was no follow up to it. And they said these guys, they'll have an explosion and then they'll have an assault, and it'll be a coordinated assault. So, now you've got a second level of this ambush to deal with, and they were more complicated, and there's mountains in Afghanistan.
I hear that's one of the
There were no mountains in Iraq.
Things. Oh, really?
Not if you got way up north, there were, but the main part of the country, there's no mountains. And so now they can take high ground against you. Now our radios don't work. You're trying to talk to somebody on the other side of the mountain. Good luck. And it just created another level of like complexity, I guess, that most of us had never seen.
I spoke to Jerry Hoffman. He's from Fairbury. He served time in the Vietnam War, and it sounds really, there are a lot of crazy similarities between what's going on in Afghanistan now and what went on in our pullout in Vietnam, but also in the unorthodox enemy. Like in Vietnam, the toughest part of all that was they were in a jungle. They had a tough time navigating through the jungle. The Americans did. And the North Vietnamese, that was their home soil. They knew it like the back of their hand. Also, there's mountains, and they had literal underground caves and these structures underground that they could hide in and navigate through and everything like that. And then in Afghanistan, like you said, it's very mountainous. People can, if you start firing back and you're doing well against these terrorists, they can recede back into the mountains, and good luck finding them there.
Gone.
So it seemed like the threat was higher than in Iraq. The enemy was higher level, and the terrain was much more accommodating for them and worse for you. Like it was worse in all ways.
The only thing good about the environment, or the only thing better for us, is it wasn't nearly as hot. It snowed. I mean, it snowed there. And
did it snow?
Yeah, we were high enough up in Kabul that it would snow. Nothing like here, but you'd get a coating, a few days out of the winter months. And there was no way that was going to ever happen in Iraq, 120s most of the time there. But
dang.
Yeah, it made for a lot more challenges that we weren't really used to. And on top of that, my group of recalled guys, we were all ex-active duty guys. A lot of them were old 82nd Airborne guys, which are even harder chargers than most. And we didn't interact well with the National Guard.
Why
really
am I not
at all.
surprised by that? Are there stereotypes or like generalizations made about different branches of the military that
the biggest difference is that the National Guard, they're with the same guys all the time, and they're all from the same area. So they all know each other, or they've known each other for 10 years or longer, and they've been in the same guard unit for 15 years. And that's not Sergeant so-and-so anymore. That's Jim. He works over at blah, blah, blah. We're buddies. So it's not, you're going to do what I tell you, or you're going to do push-ups. It's, hey, man, you want to take care of that? All right. We're all here on our weekend off, might as well make it fun. And so it's a much different atmosphere than when it is your job every day, all day, like it is active duty. And it's a much, much stricter environment.
We are brought to you by Forrest Edge Tree Service. If you have trees or tree stumps on your property that you want gone, go nowhere else but Livingston County's premier tree service provider, Forrest Edge Tree Service. Your yard is no place for looming, dead, or damaged trees because it's just a matter of time before they come down, ruining your property, ruining your week, and ruining your bank account. This is exactly why you need to be a responsible adult and hire the services of Forrest Edge Tree Service. Simply give Joe Rudin a call or text at 815-615-3037 to get a free quote today. Yes, I said free. Keep your family, pets, vehicles, and neighbors safe and save yourself from a world of headaches when you call or text Forrest Edge Tree Service to get those dangerous, looming, troublesome trees off of your property. That's Forrest Edge Tree Service, Livingston County's premier tree service provider.
And I'll never forget it. We were loading the truck to leave, and there was all of us from my group, all of us E5s and sergeants, and you see here comes a private walking by, smoking a cigarette, and one of the 82nd guys says, "Hey man, you want to give us a hand?" And he looked at him and he goes, "I don't think so," and he walked off. And it was like, what? And three of them just hovered around, on the ground, give me push, blah, blah, blah. Well, here comes the sergeant first class. Hey guys, back off. We don't do that kind of thing around here. We're a little bit more laid back than, this isn't active duty.
Oh, culture clash, man.
And, it was like, oh, well, good luck, because we're all going to a combat zone. And so then, maybe saying, hey, Larry, you want to check that out over there? That's not how it works. It's, you better have your head screwed on the right way before you get there. And
really, where is that kind of mindset that these, there'll probably be a few National Guard people that'll watch this, and I don't mean any offense to them or anything, but where would that kind of mentality serve you well in the regular world? Like, just if someone asks you for help in the work environment, to be like, nah,
right. Yeah. I mean,
it's terrible.
Yeah, it's just a lazy guy. They're at every job.
Right.
But there's no room for that there because the last thing that I want to happen when I go to a combat zone is I've got my stuff squared away and something happens to me because you didn't have my back, because you took the easy way and you weren't paying attention, and and now me or more guys have to suffer for one. You're only as strong as your weakest link,
right?
And it takes one guy, and it could be devastating for a whole group of soldiers. So
you ended up going over into Afghanistan with these people from the National Guard. What was your primary goal again? What was your mission there? Was it just to maintain safety or something?
Yeah, at this point, Afghanistan had been going for 7 years. The living conditions were built up. The main fighting was down south of Kabul, in the southern portions of Afghanistan, the Helmand province. Those are the ones that they were all the hot spots. That's where the Marines were. That's where the active duty Army units were. And we kind of knew that when we got attached to the Guard, that we're like, well, we're not going to go anywhere crazy, because they send the Marines and the active duty Army to all the crazy spots, all the hot spots. We're probably going to have an easy deployment. This is going to be great. And it wasn't nearly as tough as my first deployment, but it was there was a lot more, I guess, action than I thought there would be. I figured the attacks were at a minimum by 2009, and the gate to our base would get attacked once a week.
Are you kidding me?
They had a vehicle bomb a couple times when I was there. They called it a VBIED. It was a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. Somebody would just drive a car filled with explosives into
Blow themselves
into
up?
the gate.
Right?
Yeah, and the first.
Hold on, yeah, you're saying that kind of lightly though, but that's insane that someone blew themselves up.
The first, I guess, terrorist that did this when we were there, didn't kill anybody but himself. When he blew up, he was probably the worst suicide bomber ever. And the most damage I think he did, other than destroying a few of our barriers that were concrete barriers that were outside of was we happened to be on one of our walking patrols and saw this car driving erratically at the gate. And our team leader for the walking patrol, there was 8 of us, he said, get back behind the barriers. We had these, they call them HESCO barriers. We're all over outside of the gate. And so we took cover behind it, and this car crashes in the ditch, like outside the gate, not even into the main gate, and sits there for about 3 seconds, and then it blew up. And the first few guys in line were spaced out at least like 10 meters apart for this walking patrol. And like the first 3 or 4 guys in the line, it blew out their eardrums just because of the sound of the explosion. I was towards the back of the line, but instantly, we run over after it blows up, car parts everywhere, smoke, things on fire, and, everybody okay? Everybody okay? Everybody was fine. Nobody was even, other than the guys with the hearing, nobody was even injured. So very, very lucky, but that's how the gates are set up. There's a serpentine when you have to come in. Even, coming into the gates with Humvees, you're barely making these turns because they don't want cars to be able to.
They don't want a runway.
Right. So it worked perfectly, and the guy didn't kill anybody. But I was very surprised that this was still happening in Afghanistan at that time. I thought this was all, we thought it was going to be all over with, I guess. We just thought we were there on a, like a peacekeeping,
right.
We're going to do some patrols here. We're going to do customs.
Some basic maintenance work type of stuff.
Right. We relieved the Illinois National Guard in country when we got there. I saw Chris McGatt, who I was on the wrestling team with in junior high. I was walking out of the chow hall, and he saw my patch, and he goes, Luke? He said, did you move to Georgia? I said, no. No, I said I got recalled and attached to a Georgia unit. And he was like, he couldn't believe it. He goes, I guess they can do whatever they want. I said, yeah, they can.
So, okay. So your time in Afghanistan, although it was met with some, like these car explosions, these suicide bombers occasionally, and some IEDs is what they're called, right?
Yeah.
I assume you never really got like in a firefight, correct? No. I want to get into your opinions on a few things. One of them being because you saw these terrorists and the like firsthand. What kind of opinions did you develop about the enemy that you were fighting? Do you think that, I imagine you have some harsh feelings towards them, but I don't know. Like, tell me a little bit about them, because you probably saw some, maybe Taliban, maybe other, you literally saw them. And I know I'm kind of talking in circles here. What opinions can you form about those people, though? And what can you tell us about them that maybe we haven't heard before, except, we hear just what our friends say about them and what the news tells us, but you had the inside scoop and inside look. Can you tell us anything about them?
They were a lot more resourceful, a lot smarter than, I guess, at the beginning that we gave them credit for. And we learned that very quickly with the kinds of attacks that they could do, that they would pull off against us. They would adapt to our ways very, very quickly. We were always being watched by them. We never took just with our patrols in Afghanistan, we never took the same route on consecutive days. And all the trucks had like radio frequency jammers by then. We had these for years, and we had to keep updating these jammer systems because they would find ways around them. They would find ways to still be able to detonate something even if our jammer was on. So we would have to, it was, almost like a computer hacker. We would get ahead, and then they would think of a different way, and then we had to think of another way to, and
so they're not technologically inept like some of us think they are.
No, they're nowhere near us. They're not going to have drones out there or anything crazy like that. But yeah, they have technology. And the ammunition and the explosives that they had in Afghanistan from when Russia was there in the 70s and left piles and piles of these mortar rounds and stuff behind. And now you might not be able to shoot off a giant artillery round because you don't have the piece of equipment for it, but that's still an explosive, and that could still take out like 3 Humvees. So we're going to put wires on it, and we're going to bury it, under the ground on this road that we know troops go down all the time. We're going to have it remote detonated, and we're going to sit there and wait for you to come.
Dude, that's just the craziest part about all that, because you're right. The Soviet Union came in like 79, left in 89, and for whatever reason left a lot of weaponry, of who knows what. And then we just left Afghanistan, and we left a ton of weaponry and technology and housing and all sorts of stuff. So I guess that'll be a great segue into my next question. What are your emotions surrounding the very recent pullout, issued by Joe Biden, primarily anyway, of us pulling out our troops in Afghanistan rapidly? I
was very upset when I saw what was happening. I was not surprised at all. Their military is not. We try to train them, but our military is so old, and it took us years and years to get where we are now. And before, like, these guys, they don't have the kind of, I guess, the heart that we do. It's, we're proud of the flag and we fight for this, and they're just like, why would we fight against the Taliban? Or
right.
It's the Taliban. They're scared, and they weren't nearly where they needed to be, and we left, and look what happened. They came right in, took everything, and it was, it's upsetting. And I don't think that my generation, I don't think it was all for nothing. At least we gave them 20 years of, somewhat peace there. But I know a lot of people see it differently. I've had people ask me, man, how do you feel knowing that like everything you guys did there was just for nothing? And I don't think it was for nothing. But it is very disappointing to see this now, especially in the situation that how I went over there. I was going to school, and they pulled me out and said, you had to go to Afghanistan for a year because this is an important mission. And I'm sure it was. And now I'm like, I gave up over a year of my life for that. And we're right back where we were before. So it was disheartening to see that. And it got to the point where I had to stop watching the news, because it was upsetting me so much. And these are things like, I'm a believer that you can't sit here and stew about something that you can't do anything about now. What happened is done. Unfortunately, there's nothing I am going to be able to do to change it. So me sitting up at night reading these news articles, just getting more and more mad, when I watch these videos of like them in our gym and them.
That's a crazy video.
With the, our ARs and our equipment and our trucks. Now they have body armor. great. Now they have an armored truck, and our helicopters. And I'm speculating, but I wouldn't doubt if the actual reports of what kind of equipment they actually got from us, who knows what they actually got. They're not going to tell us that they got an Apache helicopter that had a bunch of Hellfire missiles on it, or something like that. So it's just, it was very disappointing. It's very upsetting. And I feel very bad for anybody that helped us there. Our interpreters, they were all great guys. They didn't have to do what they did. And we couldn't have done our job without them. We can't speak Arabic. And they're showing us where everything's at. Come over here. There's stuff's going on over here. You guys need to see this, all the time, pointing us around. Otherwise it's a different world over there. Otherwise we're just, I don't know, we don't know where to go. We don't know the roads. We don't know the language. We don't know their ways, everything like that. And it's made possible by those Afghanis on the ground that chose to help us. And they knew that they were putting themselves out there by doing that. And then I felt like we left a lot of them high and dry, and good luck finding people to help us again. And that's not right. I don't want that to be, people think that that's what our country's about. So it was just, it was very upsetting seeing that. So
I from my military friends, it seems like one of the philosophies that's really preached is leave no man behind. And that's exactly what happened, though, in our rapid pullout. We even left some Americans behind that are still there. Mm-hmm. Interpreters, allies. What kind of message does that send? China recognizes that, and they're telling Taiwan, I believe, don't count on America ever sticking around for long because look, they're not who you think they are. Mm-hmm. It's shameful. It's sad to see. But I do want to say also, a lot of people say it's all for nothing. Not true. First of all, you were there for 20 years. You drastically changed the Afghan way of life, especially for young women. Holy smokes. Yeah. They got a full education, a lot of them. If they were 4 years old in 2002, they lived a life. They got an education. They went and hung out with their friends in public. Yeah. They didn't have to leave with a man by their side. They were not oppressed. And now, but what's crazy is some of them are 25 years old that are still there. All of a sudden now, their lives, they're not over, although they might be, but they have gone back to the Stone Age. I mean, it's really crazy.
Yeah.
And some Afghan veterans have even taken it into their own hands and somehow operated, and I just recently read about this, operated rescue missions of their own. Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
That was awesome to see that.
Holy cow. I don't know exactly how they got a hold of I think some millionaire donors or something helped them out with all that. But okay, a couple more opinion questions here, if you don't mind. What could we have done differently from a military perspective that could have allowed for a pullout in this timely manner, 20 years after the fact? And what could we have done different that would have made things go a lot better, a lot smoother? In your opinion, I know that.
I don't know what the right answer would have been. I know everybody's got their opinions on what we should have done. I know we should have left. We should have left our military there for longer. I know we don't want to leave military personnel there for any longer than what we have to, but they could have at least, set it up like a rotating, like a duty station maybe, or, but we all knew that the minute we pulled out, they were going to come back in. And so I don't know if the answer is training their military to defend themselves more effectively.
Right.
I know we gave them weapons, we gave them gear. Half the Afghani, the ANA, the Afghan National Army guys that I would see they were shooting carrying old M16s. They had ammo pouches that said US on them that were from, 20 years ago at the time. But they just weren't trained properly. And a few years isn't going to do it. It's going to take a lot longer than that to keep, somebody like the Taliban out. And like I said, they're getting smarter. They're even a different enemy now than the Taliban that I saw. So I think, I don't know what the answer would be for keeping them away, but we can't just leave.
Right.
So,
and you talk about, you can teach them how to shoot guns and do certain things within a matter of years, but you talked about the mindset whole thing.
Right.
That's almost a generational undertaking.
It is.
That you
Yeah.
can't change very quickly at all. And man, would you say this is definitely, do you think America made the wrong move then? It goes without saying, really,
yeah.
in pulling out. Dang.
Like I said, I don't like to see troops over there any longer than what they have to be. But me, coming from a former military perspective, that's what you signed up for. And so if you need to be in Afghanistan, then you need to be in Afghanistan. Nobody likes it, but this is, this is why you're in the military.
Yeah.
So to hold off terrorist groups like this, so the local, so they can have a life. Now I know that eventually there has to be some kind of exit plan because we can't just be there indefinitely.
Right.
And as far as that goes, I don't know. I don't know what the answer would be.
Right. It's like, for me, there's a clashing of ideas here. A lot of people say if you want a man to live, you don't give him fish, you teach him to fish.
Yeah.
And while that's true, it's almost like if you're a really strong guy that people look up to in school and there's someone getting bullied, you go stand up for him if you have that
Right.
power and the authority to do so. Mm-hmm. It's kind of your obligation. It's your moral obligation to do that. And America is that kind of hero that has the potential to protect someone who's getting bullied, to put it in nice terms. And we're not doing that, Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's tough. I'm no military expert by any means. I'm no political expert by any means, but it seems like the majority of Americans, and absolutely the majority of military personnel, and of course Afghan veterans, feel the same way that you feel. Mm-hmm. Last question here, and it's a kind of a big one. Are you proud to be an American, and are you hopeful for the future of America in a military sense and as a societal sense?
First, yes, I'm 100% proud to be an American. That's never going to change. As far as the future goes, I think there's things being done now that we're going to have a hard time undoing, with the border stuff and just these kind of things can't just be undone, in a matter of years. I don't know about permanent damage, but there's some long-term damage going on. And the younger generations now, I know they've got a lot, they think a lot different than we did, when I was 19, 20, 21. So I guess I can't speculate too much on how the military is going to be, in the upcoming years. I know it's 100% different than when I was in, but I think a lot of it is for the better. But a lot of it's, I think, for the worst. A lot of people say that it's getting softer and softer and softer, and it is. But it's getting, the technology is getting better and better and better. The trucks are getting better and better. The equipment. So I guess I don't know. I hope the military, stays as strong as what it has been. I hope the country stays as strong as what it has been. I hope nothing like 9/11 ever happens again, but you definitely don't see that unity that you did 20 years ago, on September 12th, 2001, when everybody had their flags out and, everybody was on the same page, for a little bit. And it's the fighting amongst ourselves, it's the same way an army unit is. If you don't trust your commander in chief, if you don't trust your lieutenant in the field, then you're not going to be a very good unit,
That's a great analogy.
So all this fighting amongst ourselves, and I've never been one, I might not be a Biden supporter, but you've got to try to stand behind your leadership a little bit.
Right.
You don't have to agree with all the decisions that they make. But just the spewing hate, it's not fixing anything.
You're darn right.
So we've got to learn to come together a little bit better, or if people don't think that outside countries and outside terrorist groups see what's happening here, and they're just, oh yeah, then you're wrong.
They may contribute to it,
Yeah.
with bots and whatnot on social media sites.
Right.
I think that's a big thing.
I'll never forget the first time being around other military, other countries. We were around Australians, the Brits, and one of them's riding we got an Australian guy riding in the back of the Humvee one day at the U.S. Embassy, and he says, "Do all you guys drink Budweiser?" And I said, "No." "Do all you guys drink Foster's?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Man, he said, cheers." And I said, "I love that you guys say that." I said, I would use that word all day long instead of thanks, And he goes, he said, "Well, you guys aren't quite as cocky as I thought you were, but he said, your politics are horrible." And he said, "We all hear about it." And I was surprised because I don't know anything about European politics really, or, Australia or anything, but he said, "Oh, they see that kind of stuff on their news all the time about, America did this and America did this, and, everybody knows." And so that was kind of eye-opening to me, that I couldn't believe that, all these other countries are watching us. Like you said, when you're the big kid on the block, you're supposed to act a certain way. And when you don't, it's not good. I mean, I'm sure it's even frustrating for other countries to watch us.
Right.
So,
man, well, Luke Wenger, that was beautifully put. Thank you so much for the insight. Thank you for the information. Thanks for your opinions. Thank you for your service, of course, and thank you very much for your time today. It was an honor to have this talk with you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be on.
Right on. All right, that's a wrap. All righty. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to that episode of The Paul Garcia Show. If you enjoy this show and you want to support it, please consider donating a couple of bucks on Venmo to The Paul Garcia Show, or better yet, you can support the show's production on patreon.com/Paul Garcia, where for as little as $1 a month, you will gain early access to each and every single episode. And don't forget to subscribe to The Paul Garcia Show on YouTube, follow it on Instagram, like it on Facebook, and subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'm getting pretty darn close to 1,000 followers on Instagram and 2,000 likes on Facebook. So if I can get there, maybe I'll do something pretty awesome like a giveaway or something like that. But anyways, thank you for your support. Thank you for watching The Paul Garcia Show. Thank you for supporting the great people and the great stories in this area. And as always, God bless and have a great week.